Hey everyone, welcome back to Beyond Evolution. Today we're talking about AI and creativity with the amazing Maya Ackerman. We'll introduce Maya, but after a quick mindful moment to really get into the flow of this conversation. We'd like to start our podcast by grounding ourselves in this mindful moment, removing any distractions from our day so we can be fully present in the conversation. If you're multitasking, feel free to skip this section, but we encourage you to follow along so you can clear your mind, release any tension from the past, and become fully immersed in this conversation. Welcome to your mindful moment. Take a deep breath in through your nose and exhale slowly through your mouth. Again, breathe in and out. You may close your eyes if you want to. Feel where your body touches the floor, the chair, and the air all around you. Let yourself arrive fully right here. In a world of constant input, from screens, apps, news feeds, algorithms, it's really easy to lose track of your own voice, to confuse what you want with what the world is nudging you to want. So I ask you now, what is one belief you hold about yourself that wasn't entirely yours to begin with? Where did it come from? And more importantly, is it still serving you? On this podcast, we talk a lot about artificial intelligence, about how it's learning to mimic us, predict our moves, and even guide us. But this is your chance to reclaim your inner signal. The part of you that's not trained, not optimized, not filtered, just you. AI is powerful, but it doesn't know your full story. It doesn't feel your intuition. It doesn't carry your lived experience. Only you do. So before we talk about AI and machines, let's truly remember what it means to be human. We'll take one more deep breath in, hold it for a moment, and release. Come back to your body, come back to yourself, and when you're ready, let's begin.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jess. That is one of my favorite things that we do, and something that I need to implement into all of my meetings. It would be such a calm day if I did that. Maya, thank you so much for being here. Just want to introduce you quickly, and then we'll get into the discussion. Dr. Maya Ackerman is a pioneer in generative AI and a leading voice on human-machine creativity. She's a co-founder and CEO of WaveAI, a startup empowering millions of creators, and a professor at Santa Clara University. Her work blends deep research in AI with a passion for elevating human creativity. Featured in Forbes, NPR, and on stages like the UN and Stanford, Maya brings a rare mix of scholarly insight and real-world impact. Her upcoming book, Creative Machines, AI, Art, and Us, explores how we can thrive in an AI-powered world. Welcome, Maya. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This meditation really shifted the air here. I love it.
Good.
Yes, it is a wonderful gift and a great way to start, especially with all the change we're going through and everything else. So yeah, let's get the conversation started. Maya, you have an incredible background bridging AI, music, and creativity. And of course, we're very curious to hear how you first got into AI, what sparked your your curiosity and your journey with AI in general, and then what sparked the creation of WaveAI.
Yeah, thank you for asking. If I'm to bring it down to one moment, it was a workshop in San Diego back in 2015 when I saw Harold Cohen, who was one of the earliest pioneers in the space, building a system called Aaron starting in the 1980s. I walk into the room and he's showing this magnificent art that I realize quickly is made by a machine. And then he starts yelling on the stage that people are calling his machine creative, but really he is the creative one. And I'm just mesmerized by this whole experience. I have no idea if he's right or wrong. And I literally, as a first-year professor, switched my research field from foundations of machine learning to computational creativity, which my boss wasn't happy with me doing. But I just kind of fell in love with this idea of a machine somehow engaging in creativity that I kind of like threw away my whole thesis and everything that I've worked on so far up to that point and delved as a researcher into building tools to help me be creative in the musical space. And 3 years later, opened one of the earliest Gen AI startups to help other people in their musical journeys.
Amazing. And that's WaveAI, correct?
That is WaveAI. We called it WaveAI before all the companies were something AI.
What was your initial goal with WaveAI? Or often with startups, you're trying to solve some sort of problem, right? So what was your main goal or primary issue you were trying to solve for people?
So during my PhD at the University of Waterloo, kind of in parallel to that, I took voice lessons and started performing semi-professional, mostly opera. And at some point, I wanted to write my own songs. You get tired of singing other people's words at a certain point, and it just wouldn't happen for me. The melodies that my brain would come up with were kind of variations on the same theme, which is pretty normal for beginner songwriters. They were also kind of like tunes from my childhood, and I was trying to create something more modern, and I just couldn't break out of it. And I still remember when the person who would become my co-founder, one of my co-founders, David Loker, when he built this like super, super early prototype, it was command line. We would type a little bit of text and it would find different ways to sing it. So something like, it's a chilly winter day becomes, it's a chilly winter day, or it's a chilly winter day, right? There's so many ways you can sing the same phrase. And suddenly the machine would just show me all these possibilities. And the world of options broke open in front of me. And that's a moment that I knew we had something amazing. It would still take years before we would open the company, but that was a moment where it's like, wow, the machine is actually helping me see more, right? It's very different from today. It didn't constrict, it didn't insist, it didn't solve it for me, but it kind of opened up the possibility, and that's what I wanted to do for other people.
How does it do that exactly? How does the product actually work, or your platform actually work?
I love talking about that. People talk about AI these days as prediction machines, but original creative machines, these original generative models, were all about going to new places. So when you're building a system, and we have our own models for everything, when you're building these systems, you choose as a designer of the system if you're trying to sort of optimize for the right answer, which is absurd in the creative space, by the way. When you're doing anything creative, there's no right answer, but you can still kind of like give the most typical, the most likely output, which is what ChatGPT and kind of a lot of popular systems today do. That's why a lot of them are not fine-tuned for creativity. They're more fine-tuned for trying to be kind of a fact giver. And our system is designed from the ground up to go to new places, right? So for example, there's so many use cases, but somebody might have a song already, but they're stuck on the bridge. They don't know what to do for the bridge. So it looks at what they already wrote, and then it gives them ideas for where they could go next. Different ideas. Nothing is trying to be the most likely. Everything is trying to show you many different creative possibilities of where you can go. Because in the end of the day, it's about the human's creativity. All you need to do is spark the human to go further, right? So that's so different, again, from the way that kind of this all-knowing oracle myth that people are leaning into with AI today. This is different. This is kind of the humble creative machine that helps you see more.
Very cool. So it almost kind of guides you a little bit in your creative process, or like assist you in exploring your own creativity.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine you're in a big field, right? And all you can do is just follow the same path, the same well-trodden path that you're used to. And it's almost like your friend who just keeps pulling you in different directions, but ultimately you choose where you want to go. They're just showing you paths that maybe haven't occurred to you in that moment.
Right. So it's for singer and songwriters, essentially, is like your ideal customer.
Initially, that's what we thought, that's me, right? Kind of on the musical side, singer-songwriter. But we have a lot of music producers, we have a lot of guitar players, we have people who kind of transitioning from being an instrumentalist to being more of a songwriter. People who thought that lyrics writing, for example, is not for them. They try Lyric Studio and suddenly they can write lyrics, right? Like we are so much more capable than we realize. And when a tool just kind of like leads you but doesn't overstep, it's really phenomenal what you can kind of discover within yourself.
I love that. That's what we're all about. Is like how can AI enhance us and not replace us and take over and kind of dim our light. So it sounds like what you're doing is really helping people shine brighter. Sounds beautiful.
I love how you put it, Mario. We need to write it down. That's perfect.
I have a follow-up question on that. So like with the program kind of giving you a bunch of different options to, what melody they want to create or like what's next. Does the system know what note goes best after a certain note? Does it have a path where it normally follows, or it's just kind of like it gives you all the different options and then you can select, one of them?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So we have Lyric Studio, which focuses on lyrics, and then we have Melody Studio, which has lyrics, vocal melodies, and chord progressions. And I mean, it's really, what you're hitting on is exactly right. There is no right answer. There's no right answer in music, right? And there's really no right answer in a lot more spaces than music, but in particular. And so when it comes to lyrics or melodies, it shows you different stuff that can work, a lot of different stuff. But in the end, it's about capturing your emotions. That's what songwriting is. What people tell us, and this is so contrary to the way the world looks at AI, but people tell us over and over again, and what I've experienced myself from the beginning, is that the AI can help us find a way to express our emotions more accurately because it doesn't insist on itself. It just shows us different possibilities. So it shows you the next melody or the first melody in your song, or let's say the second line following the line of melody that you already created or chosen, and you really pick what feels right to you. Or you're inspired by a melody to create something new that resonates just right.
That's amazing. Yeah. I think it like helps, guide you in the right direction, but it's really up to the human to select what their artistry is and what they're feeling. And those feelings are shown through the music they create.
Exactly. And at any moment, the person is empowered to do their own thing. The AI doesn't insist on itself, right? So it's just there to help as much or as little as the person needs to. Almost like a good parent, who knows when to step back, who knows it's not about them, right? Too many AI systems are designed to be the star. I think we need less of this. We need more brilliant machines willing to take kind of a back seat.
Definitely. So, moving on towards AI in practice. What does creativity mean to you, Maya? And how has your definition of creativity evolved through your work with AI?
Oh, what is creativity? My favorite question of all times. I have like this like rigid specific answer for you, and then I have like thoughts on top of that. So creativity and computational creativity, in terms of creative product, you can kind of split it into product and process, is defined as novelty and value. So I made something creative. If it's new, if it's a copy of something, it's definitely not creative. So it has to be new enough, at least. And it needs to be valuable. So valuable when it comes to like a company means that somebody wants to use your product, right? That people are actually willing to pay for it. In a context of art, it's more subjective, right? It needs to have some kind of aesthetic value, right? Which is more subjective, but it needs to carry some kind of value for somebody, right? If it's a song, it needs to create some kind of meaningful experience for the listeners. And so that's kind of a rough guiding light for what creativity is. And so in that sense, that makes a room for non-human creativity. So if a machine creates without emotion and without intention, if it still creates something novel and valuable, then we have some basis to argue that it's being creative. Now, the process is kind of a different thing, right? So the creative process, again, it depends on who is creating, right? In humans, it typically involves intention. In humans, typically emotions play a really big role in the creative process. It can be very, very therapeutic because it's about getting in touch with yourself, getting in touch with your subconscious. It's probably my favorite thing in the world to do, to engage in the creative process. There's a lot kind of in there on that side as well. And if I'm really honest, something that's often not captured in the scientific literature, but that's really key, is that there is a kind of spiritual dimension to creativity, which I experience a lot. And I think in the age of AI, we almost get to re-question what it means to be human, what it means to create. And that's really the part that we need to hang on to, because we are very, if I may, multidimensional beings, right? And how do we create a world where humans can continue to thrive and continue to create in a world that now has these machine beings that are being unambiguously creative as well? And it's scary and it's terrifying, legitimately so, but it's also an incredible opportunity.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think it's a great question of like what creativity is going to be redefined as in this world of technology. And I think it varies. You know, I think some people may think it might shrink down the creativity level, but I think it's going to expand it. With AI, you can create something with the computer, but then there's also like human made stuff that could be more valuable. So I think it might expand the creativity world.
Yeah, like expand our human creativity. Maya, I love that you went straight to spirituality and the subconscious. And I know when we first met, you talked about your background in Jungian psychology. And that's where we always come back to on this podcast, is our deepest roots of what it means to be human and spiritual. And yeah, it's just beautiful to hear that. I feel like you're even more attached to our human roots than most people, you know, and you're co-founder of WaveAI and you work with AI a lot. So just beautiful to know that. And it's like reinstilling hope for me that we will not lose our humanity through, you know, the evolution of AI.
Yeah, I appreciate that a lot. I feel like, if you look at Jungian psychology, there's the idea of opposites that plays in there. And the thing that can do the most damage to us is the same thing that can elevate us further. So this tension that we're feeling right now about fear of AI replacing us, of ruining our world, of making people unemployed and hungry, which are all legitimate fears, by the way. Honestly, I'm together with the people who are afraid. But it's kind of at the same time, there is the flip side of it. It's an opportunity to create a world with abundance. It's an opportunity to push humanity forward, to make us more human and more creative than ever before. And it's almost like this duality is inevitable. One thing I talk about in my upcoming book is the shadow, right? The shadow in the machine. So the easiest way to see it are biases, right? These AI systems, they're sexist and racist and ageist and everything. And sometimes we want to say, how dare the developers create something so nasty? What is wrong with these people who made it? But it's not the developers. It is not the developers. It's in the data. It's our Western world. It's our Western world captured in internet data, and then the internet comes alive when it's put into these massive machine brains. And so it's all of us. It's the biases inside each one of us that form this, and we're all part of it, right? That no person is sort of free from the influence of the biases of their society. And so it's an opportunity to look within and sort of do what's called collective shadow work, accepting that these dark sides exist inside of all of us so that we can choose to do better. Because it's through awareness. If you look at research on implicit bias, it's only through awareness of the darkness inside of us that we can choose to act differently. Let's say a person who realizes that they have sexist tendencies might then, by being aware of it, make better decisions when they're hiring or evaluating, right? The flip side is also super interesting. We see how brilliant the machine is. Anybody who's ever played with Midjourney can't help but be amazed at how creative this system is, making incredible works of art in fractions of a second. And it can be intimidating, and we can be like, oh, why is it so brilliant? Why is it smarter than me? But really, that's also human intelligence. That's collective human creativity that we're witnessing. And so it can be just as difficult to admit, oh my God, humanity is this brilliant when it's combined, right? But it's sort of an opportunity to face both the dark shadow and what's called the golden shadow of humanity by interacting with these machines.
Very well said. You gave me chills in the middle of that. It's like, in this, again, like, this is a topic that continues to come up in discussions about AI, is like the fact that AI is a massive societal mirror for us. And it's like, we get to choose what we see and how we react and respond to that. And it's like, do you see the shadow and kind of like give up, or do you see the golden light on the other side, or see them both and incorporate them both, which is what it means to be human and what it means to live a purposeful life and pursue healing and growth and alignment, with your deepest soul's desires.
Exactly. It's almost like a call to grow up. I'm finding like, I've kind of, in recent years, I've been in midlife, right? So you're kind of entering this interesting moment where a lot of old beliefs and kind of false fog that children have and kind of young people have is starting to fall off. But in a way, AI is forcing all of society to expand consciousness and see more clearly what humanity is all about, because we cannot proceed into the age of AI with old ideas, with looking at AI as something that was more relevant during the Industrial Revolution, which is something that's meant to replace human labor, making people more efficient and effective. No, this is different now. This is not what Gen AI is all about. If we use it purely to replace human labor, we end up in a completely dystopian reality. So it's really a critical moment for sort of all of humanity to move forward and expand consciousness and expand our awareness to who we are.
Amazing. Going back to your shadow work, I feel like me and Mario have talked about that a lot. And I think it's so important to really dive deeper into like who we are as human beings. And I think AI is pushing us to expand that consciousness and pushing us to move forward and evolve with this technology. Because if we don't, I don't know how the world is going to look after that, So I think it's really a call to humans to develop themselves and really dive internal and to improve and to evolve. So yeah, I think that's a great take on it.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So you mentioned Midjourney as one of the AI tools. So what are some creative AI tools that you love using, and how do you use them in practice?
Midjourney is one of my favorites. I love it. It's so like, it doesn't always bend to my will, which is irritating because I like systems that cooperate, but it's so brilliant. It's so brilliant. So all of my presentations are full of art that I made with Midjourney. I like to illustrate my ideas with it. It's just like, it takes me forever. It takes me hours and hours of iterations, but it's so worth it. And I love ChatGPT. Like, honestly, I'm with everybody on the ChatGPT train. One thing that I adore about it are the critic bots. So there are these special GPTs, and some of them are built to critique human work. And you kind of have to trust yourself when something is critiquing you. And it was a challenge for me, and I think it's a challenge for a lot of people to intentionally seek criticism. But honestly, the further you are in your career, the more you need criticisms, because people are less willing to just kind of dump it on your head. And so what I've had to kind of a muscle I've had to build is to get the criticism, to seriously consider it, and choose what I agree with and what I don't. Because ChatGPT is wrong a lot of the time. And I'm not talking just about obvious hallucinations, just its perspectives are like any person's perspective. It's just a perspective. There's no like absolute right or wrong when it comes to, for example, critiquing someone's writing, right? There is, you don't want like typos and like obvious mistakes, but a lot of it is a gray zone, and the gray zone is what's interesting. And so I really encourage people, like, try the critique bots, but stay in the driver's seat. Don't just blindly believe everything the machine tells you. So I think that's been some of my favorite. I've also I've been really liking some of the video generation, the stuff right on the edge. The recent text to image generation that ChatGPT has is not my favorite, but for some use cases, I use it too. It's a little bit more literal than Midjourney. Or Sora, right, for video generation. Yeah, there's a bunch of competitors to that as well. It's very, very computationally expensive, but you can even kind of combine text to image generation with video generation in order to create little films these days. So things are moving along stunningly quickly because of how much money is getting poured in.
Can you give our audience an example of a use case that you've done with one of your AI tools?
Oh, goodness. I mean, I'm really like overwhelmed right now with use cases for my students. I've been teaching for the past few months, and I'm teaching kind of two AI classes. And wow, what my students have done. So, okay, one project was making art. So I had one student do an art project with AI about imposter syndrome, right? These beautiful images, the kind of images and poetry that kind of explore this concept. And that was really stunning. I had another one, just a project presented yesterday, that made art, and then he had AI take it into the past and the future. So how this would have looked, that same art would have looked made in the past and future, which I thought was just so stunning. And then students do all kind of like applicable stuff that could become products. I'm like, wow, you should go and commercialize this, because they're so attuned to, the needs of young people. And so they're actually building these prototypes of real products. This is a moment that reminds me of when Soviet Russia collapsed. I was born in communist USSR in Belarus, and my family got out a year before everything collapsed. So we got out in 1990, and in 91, communism collapsed. I mean, obviously, the good thing, big picture. But in the short term, a lot of people lost their jobs and went hungry. It was a complete disaster, right? Because it was one system, and suddenly there was just anarchy. And in that chaos, there was a small percent of people who became multimillionaires overnight almost, because they saw the opportunity and they got creative and they did stuff, right? And then there was everybody else who were just kind of victims of these horrible circumstances. And that's a little bit what I'm seeing right now. So most people are afraid and terrified and kind of like, oh no, how am I going to survive without the old structure? But a small number of people, and I'm seeing that in my friends and my colleagues and my students, a small number of people are like inventing a new world, are building ventures, building new philosophies. And those people they're blowing my mind. They are not afraid. They are excited, right? And they are willing to put their mental resources to build something new, not out of fear, but out of seeing opportunities. And if there's one thing I can recommend to your listeners, is tap into that part of yourself, because the opportunities have never been greater.
Definitely. Yeah, I think one thing we push on this show is to really go out there and try it. It might be a new tool and it is quite scary, or it can be scary of what things that may be able to do. But if you don't try, or you don't try to learn it, you'll never get over that fear. And fear is a natural human response to something that's new, right? But I think stepping into that mindset of let's try, let's build, let's figure something out, I think is so valuable, especially in this time period.
Did you know that the most famous actors sometimes get the most nervous before performances? We have a lot of brain structures devoted to fear. It's a very important human emotion. And so the people who succeed are not less afraid. Sometimes they're more afraid. It's just they don't perceive that physical sensation of fear as something that they're supposed to succumb to.
Right. They do it in despite of fear.
Yeah, maybe that's the big takeaway so far of today is like opportunity or fear, like what do you see, the light or the shadow? Like I feel like my entire younger life, I was focused so much on opportunity. Like what are the opportunities I can take advantage of in my personal life, with work, with investing, with whatever. And what you just spoke to is why I have a fire lit inside of me to learn about AI and, start projects with AI and explore, because I see this as the biggest opportunity of my lifetime, probably. Like I said, I've kind of had my eyes open, like where are the opportunities in life and how can I advance myself, my position, and those around me. And this AI revolution is the biggest opportunity I've ever seen.
And I have people around me who've never opened businesses, opening businesses right now. They're trusting their gut. This is such an important moment to like believe in yourself and listen to your inner voice, because people on the outside don't know, right? None of us knows where to go. Even people who've been working on this for a long time, it's shifting so quickly. So you gotta believe in yourself, and this is a good moment to sort of take a risk, because it's a great moment for outsized returns.
We've already talked a lot about how AI can enhance our humanity, but when you start and run a business, there's so much coming at you, there's so much chaos. And like with AI, there's so many new tools and new companies and all this stuff coming at us. So one thing we like to ask is like, how do you stay rooted in your humanity with working with AI and through all of these changes?
I don't like spending too much time by the screen. That has been the case with me like my whole life. I'm not the type of person who is glued to the computer all the time. I really love the real world a lot. I love pianos. I improvise on the piano. It's just 5 minutes on the piano and I feel human again. I love nature, like to an obsessive point. Like I will live in a tiny apartment in the middle of the forest over a big house in the city, like any day. Nature grounds me. When I look out the window, I have these massive California oaks, and they just like I fall in love with individual trees. That's the extent we're talking about here. It's hard for me to move because I'm going to miss the specific trees I love. So recently, especially as I was writing the book, and writing the book was really intense because in addition to my work running a company and teaching at the university, suddenly I had to spend many, many hours a day in front of the screen to kind of get these ideas out of my head and refine them. It was the most incredible journey. It has taught me what I really think in the process. And in the middle of it, I felt I'm starting to lose myself because of just how much time I was spending by the screen. And so I started doing this crazy thing, and I'm going to show it to you because I think it's worth seeing. I started making art with like flowers and glass that incorporates generative elements. And my whole room is now just filled with this art and art materials. So these kind of like generated images. And then I put like real flowers and real materials. And just the process of it would ground me so much. I would kind of feel connected to my roots again, connected to nature, reminded that as amazing as generative art is, there's a whole other magic to a flower, right? And how it's created, not by a machine, but by nature. And I would touch it and kind of play with it. And because we are organic, right? We're products of nature. And I think nothing is more important than the simple stuff about being alive. And it's important to remember that as we play with technology. It really doesn't need to be an either or, but we never want to do technology in a way that compromises our relationship, compromises our own creativity, that detracts from our desire to play with a real acoustic instrument. Because that's the base, and that's always going to be more important, right? It's you have to feel it. You have to experience it. Like being told about it from the outside is like a mom yelling at you. Like you need to just make the time for the simple stuff, because being alive, your time here and your experiences here are more important than anything. So you got to kind of optimize for that.
Absolutely. I love that so much. It's like when we get caught up in the doing, or creating, we're very future oriented. And I think that what nature does, whether it's a big oak tree or a waterfall or just sitting in a hammock, it's like it brings us back to the present. And the present is the most important piece of our lives.
Wow, that's a really good point. It's funny, right? How technology can like remove us from the moment, and we need to kind of consciously bring ourselves back.
Yeah, and that's the biggest risk, and that's what we're finding and learning through this podcast is like it's a balance, and it can have negative effects on our mental health and our energy to utilize it too much, to lean on it too much, to spend too much time with it. So I absolutely love that you just reminded us to just get outside and get away from it for a little while.
I mean, we're here for such a limited time, right? It's really important just as a human to be in touch with yourself and your feelings and what brings you joy and what doesn't. And companies are going to want to take your time and your money and work you to death and then take all your money to buy other products. We need to stay grounded and use technology kind of if and when it makes sense for us, not to have the outside world. In general, like I think what this is sort of going into for me, and I talk about it in my book a little bit as well, is just the instinct to be human. So if you look at older societies, like I live here, like in the US on native land, this was kind of a big native community where I'm living right now. And they were so attuned to themselves. Like you would have teenagers go on these soul journeys because they believe that the human inside themselves knows what's right for them. When I look at my cat is not told what to do. Like they just trust their instinct. And I think that's what we're losing in this age. It's like anything that happens to us, health-wise, relationship-wise, we're looking for experts. And now the AI maybe knows better than us on how we should live our lives, which is absurd, right? You have to be in touch. Believe and trust yourself and your gut and your instincts above everything. And then the AI can be built into your life in a way that actually enriches it.
Well said. With ChatGPT's image generation and VO3's video generation, people are talking about these things replacing human artistry. So what's your take on the fear that AI will make human artistry obsolete?
So many thoughts on that. So first of all, I think it's a disgrace that so much money is getting poured into this vision of replacing musicians and replacing artists. And that's really people hurting people at the end of the day. We abuse animals in ways that are completely unnecessary for our subsistence. I'm not trying to pitch vegetarianism here, but even within the context, if one respect all beliefs, but like in the context where we choose to believe that meat is necessary for people, the way that the meat industry works is unnecessarily abusive to animals, right? It's kind of a fact. And it's kind of the same mentality of exploitation and abuse that causes some investors and some entrepreneurs to be willing to build products that are designed to replace human creatives who make money on being creative, right? So there's a kind of bizarre human intent behind it that sometimes we want to close our eyes to, that we want to say, no, it's just a technology, just inevitable. No, there are people with a lot of resources and a lot of power intentionally choosing to build products in a way that's designed to replace, right? So that's a reality we live in, right? There are powerful people that would like to take money from artists. Fascinating, insane, right? Okay, so that's a reality we have to contend with. At the same time, there are people building tools, which I think deserve more resources, tools that are designed to support those artists, right? And I think that's why in the end of the day, we're going to be okay, because there are kind of these different intentions getting intermixed. And even some of the tools that are designed to replace artists are finding that the only people paying them are artists. So it's a very funky reality. I don't think it's bulletproof. I think there is going to be job loss because there's just so many resources getting pulled into kind of the wrong direction here. But at the same time, we're going to have more and more tools designed to support artists, and human creatives, I mean, by definition, are going to find new ways to be creative in a way that the AI can't do and can't easily replace. And so I think what we need kind of as a society, we need a motion away from screaming, kill AI, get rid of all of it, which is a totally natural instinct, and more towards a more discerning approach, more towards like, I don't want technology replacing me. I don't want technology that takes the voice of a specific artist and imitates them. That's insane, right? Like this kind of like blatant copyright violation. But to also start recognizing systems that are genuinely helping, right? To say like, instead of saying, I don't want all of AI, we can say, I don't want this AI that tries to replace me, but I want AI that tries to help me. And I think that's what really is going to help the whole field move forward, and for us to kind of move a little bit more in unison.
Well said. I think you're probably one of the more informed people we could ask that question. I know we've kind of developed our own opinions, and that includes Jess and I and a lot of our listeners, but it's really nice to hear an informed, well-researched, deeply experienced perspective on it. So thank you. That's helpful. And again, like a really positive way for us to continue to move forward with intention and awareness.
To follow up on that, I think what really stuck out to me was the word discernment, right? And it's coming back to the true human mind and deciding what's right and wrong, and the shadow versus the golden, and what's helping humanity versus what's taking away from humanity. And I think, it's not great that companies are actively pushing towards removing humans from their creative endeavors. But, I think it's how we look at it and how the human looks at it, and where we can go from there. Hopefully the greater good prevails in that instance.
Use AI for good.
Yes.
And it's going to happen. A lot of stuff that's happening is good. ChatGPT is the most successful product. What made it successful? It's when they made it interactive, when they made it so that it understands your intent and you're able to iterate on your intent to get the right thing. And this was right in the beginning of the Gen AI revolution. It launched at the end of 2022 and quickly became popular in the beginning of 2023. And yet, despite this kind of glaring, beautiful example of what works when it's interactive, when it cares about what you want, a whole bunch of products got funded with a replacive goal. And gradually, the entire field is learning that the human wants to be able to give input, that the human wants to be in control. But it's a very, very, very slow motion in the direction, because we're stuck in this industrial revolution myth of replacing, right? But it's moving, it is moving in the right direction. For example, most text-to-image models now include in-painting. So you can modify, so you can be clearer about your intent. It's not where it needs to be, but it's moving in the right direction. Because also, that's where the money is at in reality. These tools are mostly not ready to autonomously replace anybody. And it's not exactly clear that that's where even the financial opportunity is in reality. Because human plus machine, I think in many ways is going to remain more powerful than just machine. And that's why we really need to build tools that allow for that merging of minds, right? That allow us to merge the best of AI capability with the best of human capability. And also, we as humans, and this is so important, this is if you take nothing else from this episode, that's the most important. We need to have the audacity to believe that we are smarter and more creative than AI, at least in some ways. Because the moment that we hang up our hat, it's over. It's dystopia, right? But we really are more creative and more intelligent than the AI systems in many ways. And we need to keep believing in that and come to AI with this attitude. And that's what the best artists are doing right now. That's what the best workers, the best computer scientists are doing. They're combining the best of both worlds, and they're not assuming that the AI is smarter than them, right? And I think that's going to stay the case. Even as AI gets better, we're going to discover that human capabilities are so special that they remain essential even as AI gets better. And that's guts and that's audacity, but I think that's the truth.
Beautifully said.
So going along with humans working alongside machines, sometimes working with machines, you get hallucinations. And this means, the machine kind of gives an output that's not exactly what you want. And it's giving you an output, but it's not exactly true. What's your take on hallucinations in terms of, human artistry and AI artistry?
I think hallucinations are one of the most misunderstood topics in the just about humans or machines. The idea of a machine hallucinating, it really captures the idea that it's being imaginative in the way that we don't appreciate. So if we think about AI as something that's supposed to be an all-knowing oracle, something that's supposed to tell us what is true about everything, almost kind of like godlike capabilities that we are trying to endow it with, then yeah, it's maddening when it's wrong. Why is it lying to me? It's almost like on purpose, almost like an entity that's all powerful is being intentionally manipulative. Or maybe the people who made it are trying to lie to you and trying to trip you, which is a really sad point of view. It's so prevalent, but it's nonsensical. Why on earth would you want an AI to be the authoritative entity for truth? The kind of power that we're giving these AI companies then, the kind of giving up on the search for truth and meaning that it comes with. What if we allow it to imagine? What if we allow it to be wrong? What if we're more forgiving? And what if we insist that we stay in the driver's seat, that we must remain vigilant and ultimately decide for ourselves what's true? It's a little bit more work, but it avoids this pitfall of having the AI just sort of completely take control over everything we believe, which is complete madness. I mean, think about like politics. Do we really want AI to resolve all of these political problems for us? That's the kind of power that essentially is going to rule the world for us. That's dystopia. That's what science fiction writers have been warning us against. Machine imagination is where it's most powerful. Let it hallucinate. Let it go to new places. Let it open up our mind to what's possible. Starting to use machines for stuff that's not black and white, for stuff that's like storytelling and lyrics writing, and coming up with new business solutions. We don't need to always keep it accountable for its answers. If we are willing to remain accountable, it can be there to open up possibilities for us. And hallucinations, imagination, is at the core of the way that both humans and machines think. If we can't hallucinate, we can't think. In fact, Cesar Neal, who is a neuroscientist, says that we constantly hallucinate in small ways. We're constantly predicting and aligning our predictions about the world, constantly. So we are predicting machines as well. And the AI is a predicting machine. And this illusion that we are perceiving reality exactly as is, it's just not true. We see things a little differently. We always interpret reality in terms of our past. And when human beings hallucinate for real, okay, so a lot of artists go there on purpose in order to be more creative. You know, a lot of people, of course, for very good reason, it's illegal and whatnot, don't want to go there, right? But we need to sort of acknowledge that human hallucinations do play an important role in the lives of creative people. And so allowing the machine to hallucinate is really creating a more creative world for all of us and allowing the machine to take us further and to help show us creative possibilities and make us more creative without, taking hallucinogenics and risking our health. We really need a new way of understanding the word hallucinations in a way that embraces it a lot more. And my book, Creative Machines, is available for pre-order and it launches in October. And that has a whole framing around hallucinations that I think the world needs to move towards.
That's awesome. And it's such a different perspective on hallucinations because I think when the world hears it, right, it's kind of outside of our comfort zone. So AI, like we want to use AI for an exact output, right? Like we want a definite answer. And so with hallucinations, it's kind of like expanding that answer, right? It's not like a definite answer. It's a answer that you can think about and reimagine. And it's not like that set output.
It's not a calculator, it's a creative machine. And I think we should lean into that and allow ourselves to be wrong and allow the machine to be wrong so that we can both become more creative.
Yeah, I love that. It's like what you said, Maya, about walking in a field in the same path. You're like kind of carving it out. So, it's like psychedelics and, hallucinations tied to that have not only been shown to be really healing, but they also have been shown to get us out of our ordinary narrow-minded, fixed perspective that's based on trying to avoid pain, right? And like almost can be fear-based. So I love how you're tying this into like our humanity and the importance of shifting that perspective and the incredibly abundant beauty that can come from that, like getting out of that same rooted path.
Yeah, if we can just look at machines more flexibly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. So looking ahead, as AI tools get more powerful, what do you think the role of the human creator will be in 5 to 10 years? And how do you think humans can best use this technology in an ethical way?
If we look 10 years ahead, I think things will settle into a new rhythm. there is a little bit of a difference between what I'm predicting and what I would like to happen. So I think what's going to happen in reality is a sort of combination of two dominant trends. Given how much money is getting poured into replacement, I think some of it is going to succeed, right? So we're going to have this sort of somewhat dystopian reality in part. This is why it's so important for governments to step in and provide re-education and provide perhaps some level of universal income or at minimum assistance to people who kind of really fall through the cracks here. So I think we can't ignore this path. We can't be so optimistic that we let people completely fall off as a consequence of what some powerful people are trying to do with this technology. So that's going to happen. And we're seeing job loss already. I start with a negative because I'm fundamentally an optimist about it, but I think it's just so critical to admit the dark side, the shadow of this whole story. On the positive side, I think there's going to be a lot of new flourishing businesses. I think we're going to have new art forms, right? I think we're actually going to have new art forms. And I think there's going to be kind of this new appreciation for lived experience, for stuff that's in the moment, for art that you can touch, for musical experiences that happened right there and then, along with new art and new music, new genres that haven't existed before, that really become possible through this. One of my students, just an incredibly brilliant guy, is coming up with new written language, with new types of art around writing that is just like blowing my mind. So that's already happening. Some of my students, some of their visual art projects are just so deeply expressive and really stuff that you've never seen before. And I think some of this stuff is really going to stick and it's going to permeate throughout society. AI can be just this insane enhancer to human creativity when applied through this sort of ambitious, believing in humanity kind of lens. You're seeing some of the best artists not being afraid and just using all of these tools and coming up with incredible things. So I think in 10 years, that's going to flourish like crazy. So we're going to have both. We're going to have both these like incredible golden shadow outputs, and we're going to have these really difficult situations. And so it's really also a call for humanity to do the right thing and help each other. And so we have kind of as little victims of this revolution as possible.
Definitely. I think it's good to explore both of those perspectives because, there could be kind of drawbacks to AI and we're already kind of seeing some. But I think, again, the mindset and like the hopefulness is really important for everyone because we want to get to a point where we're expanding our creativity and not taking away from it and detracting it. Kind of along those lines, what gives you the most hope about the intersection of AI and creativity?
People from some of the top labels in the world use our stuff, use Lyric Studio and Melody Studio, and they do it quietly, right? So I know 100% that AI tools are getting used all over the place without us even knowing, because it's such a powerful tool for elevating human creativity. And I've seen it kind of one-off cases with people that I've worked with before it even got popular, before we even launched our tools. And I can see what my students are accomplishing and I can see what our users are accomplishing, kind of like reaching massive success with AI as one of their secret tools, in addition to their own amazing human brilliance, right? And I know from firsthand experience what it does for my own creative process. I know that it can be part of flow. I know that it can be a powerful catalyst. But I still use like the piano and I still use flowers in my art, right? It's really not about replacing. It's about using it when I want to use it. And it's really the audacity to believe in myself, regardless of what other tools are out there. And I think we've always needed that audacity. We needed to believe that we have something to say, that the world wants to look at our art and listen to our music, right? That we don't need to play small. And we just need to hold on to that ever so stronger in an age that has these machines, because they can propel us so much further. I mean, just try them, like Jess said. Just make the time to try this stuff. It's magical, and stay in the driver's seat, right? I'm seeing some people, some students, some professionals assume that the AI knows better than them, assuming that it's a guru. Don't do that. Please don't do that. That's like the biggest pitfall. You're better off not touching these tools if you're going to treat them like a guru. But you can use them as just another opinion, as just this thing that brainstorms with you, you're going to be blown away by what's possible with that.
Amazing. I think that's a beautiful perspective. It's really, the key is to stay true to your humanity and your humanness and ensure that you're the driver in how you use these tools.
Maya, honestly, you're such a light, among all of this noise. Like there's a lot of change, a lot of noise, there's a lot of emotions, and there's a lot of newness, and that can be hard to navigate. And I just feel like you're a real light, and you'll continue to be a real light for a lot of humanity through all of these changes over the next few decades.
Maya, thank you so much for joining us today. As Mario mentioned before, I think you're such a light in this whole journey and revolution that we're in. And I think people would look up to that and will look up to that. We need to look at AI as a co-creator and working alongside with us instead of against us and above us, So I think it's a great perspective that you shared here today. And thank you for all your insights.
Thank you so much for saying that. That really means a lot to me.
Thank you for being here and sharing all of this with us.
It was an absolute pleasure. This was, I think, one of the most fun conversations I recently had. Thanks so much for having me.
Maya's book is Creative Machines, AI, Art, and Us. So if you want to go check that out, you can go find it on Amazon. We always like to end our podcast by reminding our listeners that while this world of AI and what it means for humanity beyond evolution can be exciting yet uncertain, it's a journey of growth. So keep learning, keep evolving, but allow yourself to just be.